most likely to pull a prank on the rest of the team?
Hi Simon, that's a tricky one. Out of the five of us, I think at the moment I would say Eli, the engineer. He's definitely up to a little bit of mischief sometimes. But there's two dark horses because Jeremy and Tom, it's their first time down. So watch this space and we'll tell you more later.
If you take a compass and put it in the middle of the South Pole, what direction would it point in?
Hi Ella, so this is a super interesting question. So if I use my literally handy map of Antarctica, we have the Antarctic Peninsula here where Rotorua and the main bases are, and we've got the South Pole down here, and that's the axis which the world spins around. So that's what most people would know as the South Pole. The fun fact is that where the magnetic South Pole is, where the compasses attract you, is actually down here, kind of on the way to Australia. So if you were at the South Pole and you had your compass, it effectively point kind of towards Australia.
Why is the plane red?
Hi Kelly, the plane is red so it stands out, so it's noticeable, especially against the white and blue backdrops in Antarctica. But you might notice parts of the aeroplane are also painted black, and that is to absorb rays from the sun to keep it warm so we get less icing on the aeroplane.
Have you ever seen any sharks in the sea around Antarctica?
Hi Miriam. No, we've not seen any sharks around Antarctica, but in my opinion, seen much more cool apex predators. We have the orca whales, the killer whales, that hunt in giant packs together with their big matriarchs that feed on the seals and the penguins, and they're huge, massive predators. So no sharks, but some still super deadly marine animals around the Antarctic seas.
How do you keep your wings from freezing when you land in Antarctica?
Hi Miss Pop's class. How do we keep our wings from freezing? Luckily, Antarctica is a desert, so we actually don't often see snow when we're flying in the deep field on the Antarctic plateau. But when we do, and we're in the air, our leading edges of the wings have some special equipment. We call them de-icing boots, and it's bits of rubber that are stuck along the front edge of the wing, and we can throw hot air into those rubber boots, and it breaks the ice off the leading edge that keeps us snow-free and able to continue flying.
Do you have to fly in the cold weather clothes? Or is there space in the plane to put on all your layers once you land in Antarctica?
Hi Jack. So a bit of both really. So when we're flying in Antarctica, we do wear some cold weather clothes and some hard wearing clothes because of all the cargo and science equipment we're loading. But also, as you can probably see from behind me here, we've got the tanks that we ferry with. But when we haven't got these on, we've got a big space where we can keep our Antarctic clothing. So when it is very, very cold, we've got our big down jackets that we can put on in the back.
How much fuel does the plane take? And how many stops do you make?
Hi everyone. The aeroplane normally takes enough fuel that weighs as much as a heavy car, and with that fuel we can fly for 5 hours. But normally we'll fly for 4 hours just so when we land we have some fuel on board. But when we're doing long ferry flights, we have ferry tanks installed in the back of the aeroplane, which Ollie will tell you about.
Yeah, these are the ferry tanks here. So this effectively doubles the amount of fuel that we can take, which is about 10 hours fuel now. But we obviously can't land after 10 hours because we've run out of fuel. So we land with enough fuel to get somewhere else and a little bit of extra. And it takes us about 11 stops, depending on the routes, to get to Antarctica from Calgary.
How do you not slip on the ice during landing?
Hi Hassan. It depends where you're landing. So most of the places that we actually land on snow. So snow is really draggy, so when we land it wants to slow us down quite quickly anyway. But both engines have got two big strong propellers that can go into reverse. So when we go into reverse, that slows us down and we can stop there. But we do sometimes land on ice, blue ice runways, and actually we land on wheels, we don't land on the skis there. And then it's super, super slippery. So if we touch the brakes, the wheels will lock and we'll get out of control. So we use the reverse again, not just to slow us down, but to keep us in control, because we can control them individually like you would on a boat to keep us going in a straight line.
How many buttons are on the control panel?
Hi Dashi. Well, the short answer is there's a lot. We counted them yesterday for you, and we got up to 250, but we lost count. There's that many.
We're studying weather in Primary 1. We would like to know, what is the weather like in Antarctica?
Hi, Primary 1 in Belfast. Well, the weather in Antarctica is very variable, but the whole continent, it's the driest, the coldest and the windiest continent on Earth. Where we go, it's slightly warmer because we're down by the sea, so we have summer temperatures of maybe -5, but when we fly into the deep field towards the South Pole, then we operate in temperatures more like -20 to 30. But the South Pole itself can typically be at -50, and even colder temperatures are recorded in the winter when it's dark and the aircraft aren't there.
What advice would you give to people who are interested in becoming a pilot in Antarctica?
Hi Jamie. Well, the first thing would be to just get involved in aviation, get into aviation however you can. So any way that you can get through your pilot training, any way you can get into a job, that's the most important thing, and keep that passion for aviation. Get involved in anything you can get involved in, and then most importantly, get in touch. We can get in touch through our website, and we will talk to you. We'll help you through any advice that we can give to try and coach you through a career and hopefully come to pass when the time is right.
Are you going to look for penguins? If so, what type of penguin will you look for first?
Hi Felicity. Bolton Le Sands, I think that's quite close to me in Lancashire. But penguins, I am going to look for Adelie penguins on Rotherham base, so we can just walk very close to the station and see Adelie penguins pretty much every day. They're very cute, they've got a lot of attitude. But more scientifically speaking, we actually do penguin surveys from the aircraft. So we have cameras on the aircraft that take pictures of penguin sites. And from those pictures, we can count the penguin colonies and see how healthy they are each year. I think that's done every 5 years. And those are generally the Gen 2 chinstrap and Adelie penguin colonies. And that's all the way up and down the peninsula.
How often can you guys complete a flight first try without having to divert or go back due to weather and things like that?
Hi Zach. When we're doing the ferry flight, it's pretty unusual for us to divert because we've got really good forecasting and we've got really good information about the route, and all the airfields have got very good approach aids and things to help us arrive. Down in the Antarctic, we don't have any of those things, so we have excellent forecasters at Rotherham, but they're forecasting for an area sometimes the size of North America, and there's just usually one or sometimes two of them. And the information is quite sparse. So sometimes we a bit more commonly have to divert to other airfields, or sometimes go back to where we've come. But probably most of the time, 85-90% of the time, we do make it there the first time.
What's the longest journey you've ever been on?
Hi everyone. My longest journey in a Twin Otter was 8 hours and 10 minutes, and I remember that quite vividly because it was my very first flight into the Antarctic as a new Antarctic pilot, flying from the Falkland Islands with a training captain with me, and he made me do an extra 10 minutes of work when we arrived, circling overhead and doing a procedure to make sure I could land safely on my own after that. So quite a long flight for a Twin Otter, 8 hours 10.
What kind of food do you eat while you're in the air? Are you allowed a lunch break on autopilot, or do you have to wait to eat until you land each day?
Hi Michael. So in terms of eating on the plane, we are allowed to eat on the plane. Depends on which countries we're flying through, because we're not allowed to bring in any meats or fresh veg or plants or fruit into the countries. So we choose our snacks carefully. We do have autopilot now on the Twin Otters, so we can afford to take our hands off the controls momentarily as we're snacking. Crisps are always good, but a bit mucky. Luckily we have a hoover to clean the plane out when we arrive at Rotherham.
When do you attach the skis to the plane instead of the wheels? Or can you choose to land on wheels or skis at any time?
Hello, Franklin family from North Korea. So we can choose, actually I'll start with, we attach the wheel skis normally when we get down there. So once we're down in Antarctica, we'll fit these aircraft with the wheel landing skis. So with those, you're able to select to land on your wheels and your skis as well. So on our aircraft here, you have a ski lug attachment point here. And the back of the wheel, we have another attached lug as well. So hopefully we can get some footage to show you guys how that goes.
What do you do if you need the toilet on a long journey? Is there a toilet on the plane?
Hi Abigail from North Yorkshire. What do we do if we need to use the loo on the plane. We don't have a toilet on the Twin Otter. We do on our larger aircraft on the Dash 7. And on a long journey, you make sure you're prepared as much before you go. But we have the option to use what we call, for the ladies, a shiwi, and then pee into a bottle, basically, a big bottle. And we can then throw our wee down a tube, and that goes outside the aircraft and is released into the atmosphere. So yeah, weeing's pretty awkward, especially for the ladies. And then we only use a bucket if we really need to poo in an emergency.